How's that for a slice of fried gold?
You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.
I'll be back.
Just a flesh wound. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Take your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Well, hello, and welcome to Cinema Shock. It's the show that digs deep into the stories behind your favorite cult and genre movies, and I'm one of your hosts, Gary Horn.
Hey, I'm Justin Bishop.
And I'm Todd A. Davis. I started this episode full of Hollywood dreams, and now I'm crying in an alley behind Winkies. But thank you for joining us for part 2 of our look at Mulholland Drive in our series, David Lynch, Between Two Worlds.
All right, guys. Well, before we dive into this one, let's give another huge shout out to our Cinema Shock Plus members for supporting the show, and a special welcome to our newest member, Robert, who does not have a last name. They're like Cher or Madonna, but they chose Robert.
I can see it. I can see him on stage and like just in bright neon lights in the background.
Just Robert.
Robert.
Yes.
Like fireworks go off.
Yeah. Well, we love you, Robert. Thank you for supporting the show. You're helping keep these deep dives coming. If you want to join Robert, join Cinema Shock Plus and get early extended episodes plus bonus content and merch discounts and all kinds of other stuff, head over to cinemashock.net/plus. If you were a member today, you would already have heard everything we're about to talk about like a week ago. So it's like time travel.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. When we last left off, ABC had just pulled the plug on the Mulholland Drive TV series. And after all that time, all that money, and all that trust in the guy who gave them Twin Peaks, the network just decided it wasn't a viable series for them. Lynch's 2-hour pilot, that strange, dreamy, slightly off-kilter creation that he and his crew thought of as a movie more than a TV show, was officially dead. But if you've been following the show long enough, then you already know, in David Lynch's world, dead things don't always stay buried. Now, naturally, Lynch was disappointed by ABC's decision, but for the moment, he had other business to attend to. The Straight Story was about to debut at Cannes, and that was really his focus at the time. Now, at Cannes, while he was making his press rounds for the film, Lynch was constantly fielding questions about Mulholland Drive because it had been really heavily covered in the trades. It had been really hyped up, remember, as like Twin Peaks 2. People were excited about it. Now, to him, the project was dead in the water. He had actually felt a sense of relief when ABC called him because the version of the pilot that he had turned in was, he felt like it was compromised. It was not what he wanted it to be. So when they called, he was secretly sort of like, oh, thank God, but also disappointed because he saw a lot of potential in it. But once they like put the nail in that coffin, as far as he was concerned, as he told one interviewer, when something is over, it's over.
I think we have to understand that he's grieving the project at this point. He wasn't just being a typical, like, evasive director, I don't think. I think he spent months developing, shooting, fighting for this pilot, only to have it completely butchered and then ultimately just killed. So in his mind, it probably really is just over.
It's just better to move on. Yeah, instead of...
Yeah, he's there to celebrate the Straight Story now, and I think to him, like, Mulholland Drive feels like a death in the family. You just don't want to talk about it.
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
But Mulholland's Drive story was not over, not by a long shot. ABC had their own plans for it. The network still intended to air that pilot as a made-for-TV movie sometime in 2000. They'd spent $7 million on it after all, and if there's one thing TV executives hate more than they hate David Lynch, it's losing money. For Lynch, though, this idea was intolerable. It was bad enough that hundreds of bootleg VHS copies of the 88-minute butcher job pilot were already circulating around Los Angeles. The thought of millions of people watching it on national television was too much.
This is one of the important parts of the story too, because we talked a lot about it last episode, but that 88-minute, like, what do you call it, garbage compactor
garbage
version
compactor thing,
which he obviously hated, started leaking all over Hollywood. But a funny thing, like, I mean, it seems like people, did love it. like a lot of people that watched it. So even in the mangled weird form, some people were watching this like bootleg version of it and buzzing about it. And people think that David Lynch is kind of a visionary and maybe this is one of the best things he's done in years. So I don't know. I think even in the failure, like there seemed, from what I could find, it seemed like there was an underground buzz about it. The first proof that it had life, even if ABC couldn't see it. It was like we found out that he was going to direct, or he was offered The Ring at one point. This felt like the Ringu tape of 90s Hollywood or something.
Right.
Like execs are like passing it around.
Yeah.
Like, dude, did you see the Lynch pilot? Yeah, I saw it. What happened? I don't know. I think I'm a director now. There's a cowboy. I keep seeing him.
I have a weird theory.
Do you? No.
Yeah, I know. Shocking, right? Here's your cinema shocker right here.
Yeah.
I think he leaked it himself.
I don't, because if you hear him talk about it, he was very upset that it was out there. I think from how very passionately pissed off he was that it was out there, I don't think that he leaked it. Because even as we're about to talk about it, even when somebody came asking to see it from him, he was very, very hesitant about them seeing it. Like he started to, it was making the rounds, and it was getting some buzz, like you said, Gary, but it was more about like people seeing its potential. It was not the version that he wanted out there, and that's what he was upset about. This was not, because he had had Final Cut since after Dune. He said, "I will always have Final Cut." And technically he did on this, but he still had to work within the confines of a TV length. And also he wasn't given the time to really finesse it to get the final cut that he would have eventually worked his way up to. So he didn't like that this compromised version was out there. And he began the process of having his name removed from the project entirely through the Directors Guild of America.
Which is like the nuclear option for a director, because he's officially trying to like Alan Smithy the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and just for those that don't know, that's like the pseudonym you give for like
when you want to disown a movie. Yeah.
The director doesn't want his name attached to it. So, but while what you're saying, Todd, is a thing I think does happen and has happened.
I don't think it happened in this case, though. I think it has absolutely happened. I mean, it happened with Deadpool. Like when that footage leaked, Ryan Reynolds leaked that. Like, and he has since said that. But at the time, everyone was like, this seems like a little too neat and tidy for a leak. Whereas this one was like, David Lynch was like, I don't even want people knowing that I made this.
Oof.
Yeah. I mean, and I think filing this feels like it has to be kind of sending in an unmistakable, like a public signal that this is not my work, or you have mutilated my work and I am disowning it. So, which I wonder, I guess, has to be an embarrassment for ABC too, just to see him publicly despising it so much.
Well, because then if they do decide to air it, they can't use his name to sell it.
Right.
You know, if through the Directors Guild he gets his name taken off, then they can't say from the visionary mind behind Twin Peaks comes Mulholland Drive. Like, they can't do that legally.
Yeah. I don't know. The more you guys keep talking, the more sound of this theory sounds like he leaks it and it gets him over on an ABC.
No,
maybe he's playing 5D chess.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, I've read multiple interviews with Lynch about this, and his anger about it being out in the wild is, I think it's too genuine for him to have leaked it himself.
Okay.
And I also don't think I think David Lynch is more concerned about the integrity of his art than anything else. And he felt like this was not the version of his art that he wanted out in the world. That's what he was concerned about. More so than even the show not going forward. He was more concerned about a piece of art with his name on it being out in the world that he doesn't approve of, that he does not think is up to his standards. That's what he's upset about, that this is not the truest representation of what he was trying to create. It's not a business decision. It's an artistic decision. So that's why I don't think that he would leak it, because leaking it means that you're trying to, that's a business move. That is not David Lynch's concern, and honestly never has been. So he goes through and plus going through the whole process of trying to get your name pulled off with the Directors Guild is a lengthy and difficult process. They do not make it easy because they don't want it to be an easy thing. So the fact that he's even pulling the trigger on trying to do that, he's not showboating. It's not performance art. That's him legitimately not wanting to be associated with this anymore. So he goes through he starts this process. And while he starts this process, a savior appears. This guy named Pierre Edelman. He's a French producer who had helped finance Fire Walk with Me and Lost Highway through CB 2000. Remember that multi-picture deal that he had. CB2000 closes down. Pierre Edelman goes to Studio Canal, which is another French company, the same company that had backed The Straight Story. That summer, Edelman visits Lynch at his home in the Hollywood Hills, and he asks, he's like, I heard about this pilot. Can I watch this pilot? He's like, I can get a copy. Edelman knows that there are copies floating around, and Lynch was pretty reluctant about it. Like, he eventually agreed, but like, he didn't provide a copy of it for Edelman because he didn't want anyone to see it. But eventually he's like, all right, fine. If you can watch it, we'll talk about it. And that's what Edelman did. He got a bootleg copy of it. He watched it. But Lynch was not like looking to make a deal about this. He had essentially, like we said, disowned it by this point. But Edelman watched it and he saw some potential in it. He made Lynch an offer after watching it. And this offer sounded almost too good to be true. He said, Studio Canal is going to buy the rights from ABC, and then we're going to give you another $7 million to finish it. Not as a TV show, but as a feature film.
God bless the French.
The French love David Lynch. They do.
ABC is like, this is unwatchable garbage. It's too weird. And Canal Plus just swoops in. They're smoking their little thin cigarette. None. It is not weird enough. Here is $7 million. Go find a monster and make a key that opens nothing. Viva la cinema!
It's an excellent French accent, Gary.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Gary disappeared just now. What happened?
In America, Lynch is a cult director who made weird TV, and in France, he's a tour, as appreciated as we've discussed. So he's a cinematic god like Fellini or Bergman. Canal Plus and Pierre Edelman, it doesn't sound like they were looking at this as saving a failed TV pilot. They were commissioning the new David Lynch film.
Yeah, that he had already half shot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and negotiations on this went on for almost a year, and it's because Pierre Edelman works for Studio Canal, but he's not like, he's a middleman essentially. Alain Sard is like the guy in charge. That's why you say Alain Sard presents at the beginning of the movie. So he has to not only work with Studio Canal to get them to commit a lot of money to this, but they're having to figure out how to convert the footage shot for the TV show, which shoots in 25 frames per second to 24 frames per second for theatrical exhibition. They also have to get in touch with any of the cast who's coming back, because these people signed contracts for a TV show, not for a movie. So they're having to renegotiate contracts and all this stuff. So this goes on for a year. Eventually, it goes through. Lynch agrees to all of their terms, but not without hesitation. Because remember, one of the things that had drawn him to television in the first place was the freedom to follow a story without knowing where it would lead, to let the mystery guide him. A film, however, kind of demands an ending of some sort of closure, and Lynch wasn't sure he had that ending. So by the time this whole deal finalized, nearly 2 years had passed since the original shoot. Costumes had been sold or repurposed, props had vanished. The few sets that survived were literally like rotting in storage. They had not been well taken care of.
You have to imagine the logistical problems are a complete nightmare for something like this. Like Fisk's gonna have to rebuild the entire set of Aunt Ruth's apartment from scratch. The actors, that's got to be a weird thing too. Like Naomi Watts, Justin Theroux, they spent 2 years not being Betty and Adam. Watts, though, in particular, has to become the cereal box character that she thought was dead. And now create a new
persona,
completely broken character. The fact too that the Diane footage, the new stuff, looks grittier and sweatier and everything than the Betty footage. I mean, I think that's perfect, but it seems like the gap helps that probably. But
resurrecting Mulholland Drive meant rebuilding this whole thing physically, creatively, and spiritually from the ground up. But worst of all, despite all the logistical stuff, the worst part is like Lynch has no idea how this story is going to end.
Can you imagine the stress of that? I don't know that David Lynch gets super stressed thanks to meditation, but you just took $7 million and you got no ending, and you're just sitting in your chair drinking your coffee. You're panicking and like, okay, maybe the monster is the landlord. No, that's stupid. Maybe the cowboy is her dad. No,
I think
it's a good thing he has meditation, because I feel like he would have just ended it with like, who knows?
Yeah, I think he did almost he almost gave up on it a few times throughout this process because he's like, I just don't know. Like, how do I never intended on wrapping this up, just like he never intended on wrapping up the Laura Palmer thing so soon. He never intended on wrapping this story up so soon. I don't know how to do this. So there were several times during this process where he's like, I just can't do this. Like, we just can't do it. But the solution to this whole predicament came to him fittingly during one of those daily meditation sessions. We've talked a lot about David Lynch being very into transcendental meditation. So during one of these sessions, he's sitting quietly. He does this every day, I think 2 or 3 times a day. This is his morning session. He's sitting quietly meditating when, as he later recalled, the ideas began flooding in. They arrived all at once. Images, fragments, connections, pieces that suddenly fit together in a way that to him felt like magic. As he later told Scott McCauley in Filmmaker Magazine, fantastic interview with David Lynch from around this time, he says, one night I sat down, the ideas came in, and it was the most beautiful experience. Everything was seen from a different angle. Now, looking back, I see that the film always wanted to be this way. It just took this strange beginning to cause it to be what it is. It was a big change and it required ideas that I was so happy with when they came in. I sat down in a chair at 6:30 and at 7 o'clock they were all there. They came out of a kind of darkness and made themselves known.
It's always weird to me that he just has this. Yeah, we've talked about it, like the catching the big fish thing. Obviously, we've mentioned this 100 times now.
I mean, that's basically what he's describing here. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the ideas exist outside of yourself. And so they come to you, and it's your job to be ready and aware and focused to like catch them basically and like bring them in. And so David Lynch just, a lot of people spend years trying to figure out a screenplay, and David Lynch just downloads masterpieces. He's like a
from the universe.
Psychic modem. Yeah, he just psychic modem. He just sits in a chair, his eyes rolled back, I imagine, and then it's like he's all of a sudden he like warps into like the art dimension, and he just like basically like torrents like 18 pages of like script into his brain. It's just there.
Well, it makes me think of that quote from like Michelangelo, where he talks about he gets a slab of marble and he carves it until the being, the person or whatever, the subject that's within that marble is revealed, as if that marble always held David. Right. And then he carves it until David is known. That's sort of the same thing Lynch is describing here. He talks about these ideas like they had their own consciousness, as if he's just the lucky guy who happened to tune into their frequency. So he didn't see Mulholland Drive as something that he was creating, but rather something that wanted to be created, and he was just the vessel that it chose to use. That's sort of his creative process. And these new ideas didn't just solve the problem of how to end the story. They actually transformed the entire thing. So Lynch started weaving these revelations into a fresh script. He wrote 18 new pages that completely recontextualized everything that came before.
Yeah, completely. It turned the film into, from like what seems like he was going for a linear narrative, into like now we're back at like the Mobius strip kind of deal, it feels like. So I love that Lynch talks about his movies like it's a ghost that's haunting him or something. The film wanted to be this way. Oh, really? Did the film tell you to put the monster behind the dumpster, David?
Yes, it is.
Is it telling you to drink all that coffee, to smoke those cigarettes, sir?
Yes. Well, once these pages he was writing were ready, he reached out to Naomi Watts and Laura Elena Haring, both of whom he had stayed in touch with since the aborted pilot. He sends them the material. He actually has them come over to talk about it because some of the new stuff they needed to talk about. Like
what? I don't get it.
There are some scenes that he wrote that would not have gotten past the censors at ABC. Yeah. So there was a conversation that needed to be had.
A few points. 4
4
points. 2 from Naomi and 2 from Haring. Yeah, I get it.
But they read the script. They agreed to come back. In fact, they were thrilled to come back. They were happy because they were sad that this project had died. Laura Haring told Lynch that she always thought it was going to live in some form before he even realized that. But and Naomi Watts, this was supposed to be like her big break, and then it just goes nowhere. So you have to imagine how happy she was to be able to come back and finish it.
He explained it by saying, this part's for you, this part's for me.
What part are you talking about, Gary?
Oh, I think we all know what I'm talking
I don't get
about.
it.
It's the part you were paused on for half an hour, Todd.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was rewatching this last night, and my 4K player did freeze up in the middle of that first sex scene. It was on a close up of them kissing, I think, and there wasn't any nudity, but it was also like I couldn't get it to play. I had to I had to reboot my whole setup because it was stuck there, and I was like, well, I guess if you're gonna get stuck on a scene and burn this into my television, I guess this is the one.
Right at that exact
your
moment.
setup is too smart. It's like, oh, you want to stop here, right?
Yeah, we'll get going when we know you're ready.
Right at that exact moment, Justin realizes he forgot to zip up his pants, and then he's trying to fix that, and his wife walks in, and then he gets up, and he's like, "It's not what you think," and he trips, and he falls through the TV. It's a whole like American Pie scene. And I mostly just said that just so we could have a way to say that we connected to American Pie and David Lynch.
Yeah.
He loves pie.
He does. Loves pie. Not in the same way that Jason Biggs does, that we know of.
Kind of.
Maybe.
Depends on what your definition of pie is.
So in September of 2000, 2 years after Mulholland Drive had been declared dead, David Lynch was back on set. His cast and crew reunited in Los Angeles for 18 more days of filming, shooting scenes that gave Haring and Watts new identities, but not necessarily new characters.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to frame it. Like the new 18 pages revealed that the new identities were actually the real characters all along.
And I'd have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you, ABC.
Yeah.
Well, most of the pilot stayed intact, forming the first 2/3 of the finished movie. Slightly different form, some different beats here and there, some scenes that are lengthened from what they were in the pilot. But essentially, the first 2/3 of the movie were what had been shot for the pilot. But then in the final act, Lynch reinvented everything. Naomi Watts becomes almost unrecognizable as Diane Selwyn, a bitter, struggling actress haunted by failure and heartbreak. Haring's Rita becomes Camilla Rhodes, Adam's lover, muse, and Diane's ex.
Can you imagine being Naomi Watts? Like, pilot's back. Can't wait to play Betty again. And then you get the new stuff, and you're like, oh, wait, I'm
Sorry.
not Betty.
You gotta look like shit.
No, I'm Diane, and I'm very sweaty and murdery. And I'm also a failed actress, and I have sex with the real version of Rita, and I get murdered by little old people. This is the greatest script I've ever seen.
Yeah, even smaller players morph into new forms. Like Ann Miller, who was the landlady, really, kind little landlady. She becomes Adam's icy mother. The friendly neighbor reappears as Diane's ex-girlfriend, and that sweet old couple, who once escorted Betty out of LAX, return at the end as tiny demonic versions of themselves, literal figments of Diane's guilt, taunting her until she pulls the trigger.
I think the old couple, the scariest part of them is when they're absurdly supportive of everything. That's when your subconscious is fucking with you.
Yeah, there are a lot of theories about those old people. Maybe we'll get into them, maybe we won't, but there are some very intriguing theories about who they represent.
I did read that Watts, like she actually seriously was, she called the 18 pages of script like the very terrifying and thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
She was excited about doing this other thing, so I kind of made a joke about it. But her and the same was for Haring, like she was getting to do this whole new thing. So I think for them, it was kind of fun.
Well, how often do you get to like come and play essentially multiple roles in a movie and that are so vastly different and show off your skills that way?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So to them, it's a challenge and something interesting to do in their career. So speaking of, I did want to also mention, because I kind of hinted at it with Jack Fisk, I did want to give some credit to, imagine how much of a technical challenge you're going to have for like Peter Deming in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
That he's coming back 2 years later. He's got to perfectly match the lighting and the film stock and the mood. And this is all from 1998. Now it's years later. And I don't know, you got the color timing, and you got to glue all this together. The fact that you can't see a seam in here for that's a miracle.
It's
really.
impressive. Yeah. It's impressive. And speaking of some of those other characters, you've also got the earlier Camilla Rhodes, which is the blonde actress played by Melissa George, the one the mobsters insist Adam cast while saying, "This is the girl." Now, that character kind of echoes through the new structure, and that same line becomes Diane's own command when she hires a hitman to kill Camilla, who is now played by Laura Haring. So all of this doubling here really echoes Lost Highway more than anything. I mean, doubling, as we've said many times throughout this series, is a staple of Lynch's work. It's one of his many obsessions, but Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive are the clearest examples of that obsession, I think. Characters take on the names of other characters. Actors play multiple roles. The two movies are intertwined thematically in other ways as well. You hinted at this earlier, Gary. Both portray fantasies that are kind of compensation for what reality can't provide. Both fantasies are fueled by immense feelings of guilt. And both of them, as you said, Gary, have a similar Mobius strip structure. So there's a lot about these two movies that's similar. It almost feels like, and I hate saying this because I think it lessens the impact of Lost Highway, but it almost feels like Lost Highway is a dry run for what he's going to do here, in a way.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It's hard not to see that because definitely a lot of the themes he's carrying over and I would say improving upon when he does this. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, was this where the Mulholland Drive TV series was headed all along? Probably not. I mean, even Lynch wasn't sure where the show was going to go. And as he later said, the ideas that came in wouldn't have occurred if it had been done in a normal way. So ABC did me a huge service by allowing it to go that way and then killing it.
Only David Lynch can get fired and call it a huge service.
Yeah.
They took my $7 million pilot and called me slow, called my actresses old, and threw it in a dumpster. And he takes a drag on a cigarette. Best thing that ever happened to me.
It sort of is, though, right? I mean, it kind of is. But even still, like, there were signs, even in the pilot, that Lynch was already steering towards some kind of rupture point, the kind of narrative break that he had explored in Lost Highway. In early story meetings, he described a development that would send Betty and Rita in opposite directions. Betty would lose her innocence, while Rita would find redemption.
Yeah, I liked that concept of it, the opposing trajectory or whatever between these two. Like, it almost sounds like he was doing like a moral journey for the two characters, and that I dig stuff like that. That could be fun. Yeah, Betty gets corrupted by the darkness of Hollywood, and Rita's builds a new identity that's like innocent and great. Like, essentially, they're swapping places.
Yeah,
where the film, like, I think it's not so much a story about moral corruption. It's like psychological stuff, like the collapse of her.
Yeah,
it's interesting that he took it in a different direction than what it seemed like he was doing in the first place.
Yeah, and you could see hints of that in Betty's audition scene, which was filmed for the pilot. It is in the pilot, and it's one of the most talked about scenes in this movie when you start reading into this movie, this audition scene. Because midway through this sequence, Watts drops that chirpy gee whiz performance that we've come to expect from Betty, and she taps into something raw and unsettling. In a single take, she transforms this cheesy soap opera script into something devastating, and suddenly the whole tone of the scene shifts. And Watts said in later interviews that the direction kind of confused her, the way David Lynch was asking her to play this scene, because it felt melodramatic, it felt out of sync with the rest of the pilot, with the way that he had asked her to play everything else. But she trusted Lynch because it's like, clearly this guy, he's got a plan. He's asking me to do this for a reason. And this scene is, for one, a tour de force performance from Naomi Watts.
Yeah.
It's an incredible scene. It is, I think, one of the reasons that this movie made her a star is this scene specifically. I mean, there's a lot of other great stuff from her in the movie, but this scene specifically gives you the full range of what an actor can do, all in a single scene. And it's so vastly different than everything else that we've seen from Betty during the film that the entire notion of her character, who we have thought her character is, up until this point, is completely turned on its head. And this is a movie, it's a story set in Hollywood. And a lot of this movie is really Lynch's comment on the sort of candy-coated facade of Hollywood, of the town. And I think in this scene, Lynch is commenting, not only is he hinting that, Betty is not quite who we think she is, but he's also commenting on the very nature of filmmaking, reminding us that in movies, nothing is really what it seems. Like, it's all fake.
Best part to me is like the reaction of everybody else.
Oh, they're just blown away. Yeah.
Yeah. Just they're stunned and or frightened or something. And supposedly that was a lot of that was genuine. Like, a lot of people were like, what the hell?
We did not see this coming.
Yeah. And I had read that Lynch saw that and was like, okay, we got it. That's the shot then.
Nice.
So this kind of shows everything you need for the movie, like just the dream cracking. And I don't know, I love that scene too.
Yeah, it's really one of the first, like you said, one of the first cracks in this reality that she's created. I think the biggest clue that Lynch was already thinking beyond television or beyond the surface of what we've seen early on comes in the Club Silencio sequence. This surreal cabaret that serves the same symbolic functions in Mulholland Drive that the Red Room does in Twin Peaks. They're a very similar space. Lynch biographer Dennis Lim described it as a space of cosmic disruption and transgression where identities slip and realities multiply, which I think is, as I couldn't think of a better description of it, so I just decided to quote him because that's fantastic.
Right.
Now, this scene was not in the pilot script. Like the Red Room, Lynch conceived it for that international theatrical cut that he was having to shoot, something that could serve as an ending to that if the series never continued, but that he could also use that footage later on in the Mulholland Drive TV series, like he used the Red Room stuff in like episode 3 of Twin Peaks. He filmed this at a place called Tower Theater, this dilapidated theater in downtown Los Angeles. He transformed it into a midnight dreamscape. It looks incredible, and it looks very Lynchian with the red curtains and everything, the lighting. And at its center was a woman named Rebecca Del Rio, a little-known singer from San Diego. Her career had kind of stalled. Like, she had not really had a big break. She was playing small venues and whatnot. People didn't really know who she was. But everything changed for her after a mutual agent arranged for her to meet with Lynch for coffee at his home. The agent just thought they would get along. And Lynch invites her into his home recording booth. He's got this really rare vintage microphone in his recording booth. So he was kind of showing it off to her and asked her to sing into it. She gets into the recording booth and she sings Llorando, which is a Spanish language version of Roy Orbison's Crying that she'd been singing in her live performances for years. So she decided to sing that a cappella, just sing it into this vintage microphone of his. Unbeknownst to her, Lynch recorded that performance. Lynch later said that her performance hit him right in the heart. And what Del Rio didn't know, had no way of knowing, was that Lynch had nearly used the original Roy Orbison version of that song in Blue Velvet. We even talked about that briefly during Blue Velvet. But he then decided on In Dreams instead, but it was almost Crying.
Lynch hears the demo and is electrified. I imagine he tells her, I need you to sing it and then just die. And so, but that song choice is the entire movie in a nutshell. It's like about putting on a face and being okay after a breakup, but collapsing in private, basically. It's a beautiful version of that song and the perfect song for this.
It's incredible. It gives me chills every time I hear it. And I think also doing a Spanish language version of it, which is something she did. So she originally recorded it, or she originally would perform it at her shows, the original version, the Roy Orbison English language version. And she started doing it a cappella because her band had a hard time with the key changes throughout that song. So she just is like, you know what, I'm just going to sing it a cappella. That'll be cool. She changed it to being in Spanish when Selena died, as a tribute to Selena. That's when she had it translated into Spanish and started singing it that way. It being in Spanish, to me, also sort of is a nod to the multiculturalism that is Los Angeles. Not just, there's a large Hispanic community, but there's a large international community in general in Los Angeles. And I almost feel like that's sort of another layer to that choice. Not only are we doing this song, which if you listen to the lyrics, fit in thematically with this movie, but it being in Spanish is just another layer to that.
For the record, just putting it out there, if I ever hit it big and I can open a club in LA and figure out how to fit it on the sign, I am going to call it a space of cosmic disruption and transgression where identities slip and realities multiply.
That's below the name of the club.
Right.
The main name is Gary's.
Gary.
Right. It's going to be Gary.
But the rest is the subtitle.
A space of cosmic disruption and transgression.
Yeah. But he basically built this entire scene around knowing that he had that performance in the can. So when it came time to film this Club Silencio sequence, he used that original home recording. They didn't re-record it. He used that original recording that had been done at his home. He played it back on set. He actually had Del Rio perform the song live on set. Didn't record her vocals, but she is actually singing when they filmed it. Her microphone was just turned off. But he did that so that she could physically convey the ache and the heartache of that performance. And then halfway through, she crumpled to the floor, but her voice keeps singing. Playback rolls on, and it sort of exposes this artifice and somehow makes the whole performance even more powerful. As Lynch later put it in an interview, he said, that's the moment when the bottom drops out, when you realize that you're not in control anymore.
You realize that because even in your subconscious, you've got a heckler. That guy on stage is just like, you think this is real? It's all fake.
I love the magician. I love that guy. And Rebecca Del Rio this basically created a career for her. Like this song, this performance in this film gave her the career that she had been chasing, much like Naomi Watts for years, with very little success playing small venues. And she kind of became a star in her own right. And she unfortunately, she passed away earlier this year, over the summer. But for the last 25 years, she has had a pretty stellar career as a musician because David Lynch gave her break in this movie. Because anyone who sees that scene cannot help but be moved by it. And you want to seek more of her stuff out after you hear it because her voice is phenomenal. And when she performed this song on set and she drops and she passes out, she tells a funny story about that too, by the way. When she falls, David Lynch was like, "That was great, but can you do it again and close your legs a little bit?" Because you could see her panties. And he didn't want that. He didn't want that to be seen. And so they did it like 3 or 4 times, her falling, until they got the one in the film. It's just a little bit of an upskirt, but it's like, I guess it was the best they could get without her just like going full spread eagle on the stage. But David Lynch was trying to be respectful and not show that, which she found very endearing in this interview I found with her, which was conducted earlier this year after David Lynch passed away, but before she did. But when she performed this on set, because like I said, she was singing, even though they weren't recording it, like no one on set moved. Like it stunned everyone into silence. Peter Deming remarked that it felt like time stopped. And Naomi Watts described it as feeling like you're stepping into another dimension. And in the finished film, that's exactly what it becomes. The hinge where the dream collapses into a nightmare and illusion, performance, and grief all dissolve into one. From that point on in the film, it's like all gas, no brakes. We're in a whole different place here. I think this scene, it's important for many reasons. A big reason to me is that it's one of those scenes that tells you to pay attention to the illusion. You know, that's what the magician, the man on stage, is what he's credited as the magician, the MC. That's what he's saying when he's talking. Like, he's telling you to pay attention to the illusion. No hay banda. There is no band. When Rebecca Del Rio sings, it's one of the film's most emotional moments. This woman singing her heart out. You can see the emotion on her face. You can hear it in her voice. And then it's revealed that she's been lip syncing the whole time. It was all a charade. It was all fake. And in that moment, Betty's reality is shattered. She starts to go into kind of convulsions because I think it's because she senses that her own self-made illusion is falling to pieces and the cold reality of her life is about to come to the forefront.
It feels like Lynch speaking directly to the audience, and more importantly, probably to Diane, that the magician on stage is saying that. And then
he's like, there is no band, and yet we hear a band.
Just telling, that, hey, the Betty thing's can't sustain itself anymore.
Right.
This is all fake.
Yeah. You can only pretend for so long.
This is all fake. There is no band. That lady's dead, but her voice still goes on. No, I banda. You can only pretend for so long. Thanks for coming out to Club Silencio. Drive safe, everyone.
Be sure to tip your waiters and waitresses on your way. Don't drink and drive. Well, Mulholland Drive made its debut at the 2001 Cannes Film Festival on May 16th of 2001, where it screened in competition for the Palme d'Or, the fourth of Lynch's films to compete for that prestigious award. Now, Lynch, who had learned the hard way that Cannes can be as cruel as it is glamorous, warned his actresses to be prepared for anything. Fire Walk With Me had been jeered there less than a decade earlier, and Wild at Heart had been famously booed even as it won the Palme d'Or. So Cannes, he reminded them, can turn on you real fast.
He's not just being modest. He's preparing them for...
Yeah, he's like, I've been through this.
Yeah, this is going to feel like public humiliation.
Yeah.
And it's like what feels like the world's biggest stage. So
yeah.
Just get ready for this. I've been through it a couple of times.
Anything can happen. Because he's also, had good experiences there with The Straight Story, which was very well received, even if it didn't win any major awards. But most of his other experiences at the festival had not been great. But this time, things went pretty well. From its first screening, Mulholland Drive was a sensation. The response was electric. The film was hailed as a return to form for Lynch. Writing for Variety, critic Todd McCarthy called the film a compelling but intentionally inscrutable study of dreams, delusions, and identity in Los Angeles. This is David Lynch back in the finest form he's shown since Blue Velvet. The Guardian's Peter Bradshaw described it as a hallucinatory vision of Hollywood, thrilling, exasperating, brilliant, ridiculous, and unmissable. And Roger Ebert, who has spent much of his career skeptical of Lynch, called it the best film that he had seen at Cannes. In his dispatch from the festival, he wrote that Lynch brings together the themes of his career into a dreamscape that's both terrifying and seductive.
Let's underscore for a second, longtime critic here. That's an understatement of the century because Ebert was Lynch's. It felt like on every other movie so far, he's been like his arch nemesis.
Except for the Elephant Man, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I mean, he gave Blue Velvet 1 star.
Right.
Called him misogynistic, if I remember correctly. And Wild at Heart, I think he gave maybe 2 stars. He despised Firewalk with me.
Yep.
He called it a film in the state of artistic exhaustion. So for this specific critic to turn around and call Mulholland Drive the best film at Cannes, the best film he'd ever seen at Cannes, and to give it 4 stars is, I feel like that's pretty monumental.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, that's huge. And there's this great video, I'll post it on our social media, of Lynch kind of running into Roger Ebert and them having a little conversation on the red carpet at the festival. That's very cute. It's a fun little interaction between them because he knows that Ebert hasn't liked his movie so far, so that kind of plays into the conversation between them. But it's very fun. Like I said, I'll post it online when we.
Is it the one where he's like, I was doing it in my film study class, or we were going over this, and we think we figured it out, and it's this. He's like, sure, you got it, Roger. He's like, can you elaborate on that? And he's like, no.
Well, when the film ended, the audience rose to their feet, and the applause lasted more than 5 minutes, an eternity by festival standards, a 5-minute standing ovation. While Mulholland Drive didn't win the Palme d'Or, Lynch did take home the festival's Best Director prize, which he actually shared with Joel Cohen for The Man Who Wasn't There, one of the few times that they've given a co-award to a director, one of, I think, 4 times over the 70 or whatever years that they've been doing that festival. So that's kind of a big deal.
I feel like this is the payoff of that warning that David Lynch gave them at the beginning. You know, he prepped them for the worst, but Naomi Watts has said she and Laura Haring were sitting there in the theater petrified, literally bracing for the booze to hit. And when the lights came up and the applause started and kept going, they just looked at each other and just burst into tears.
Nice.
And they were just like holding each other, and just like overwhelming relief is what she called it, for like 5 minutes. They were just sitting there just absorbing all
what
that.
a great feeling that must be too, because this has been years of your life. And you thought it was dead for 2 years, and then to come to that, that's got to be such an immense feeling.
It was the first moment that for 3 years of your life, technically, that the project is like a failed pilot and a career killer probably. And then in that moment, you have to realize that your whole life has just fundamentally changed.
Yeah,
because now you've just gotten a standing O at Cannes,
at the most prestigious film festival in the world. Like, no matter what, you have a career from here on.
Yeah. I was trying to read like what actually won that year, the Palme d'Or that
I looked it up, and it was a movie I have never heard of.
Yeah, it's called The Sun's Room.
Yeah.
But it said the festival jury, they liked that movie too, and they wanted to honor both films. So a lot of people feel like they were just it was a way to split the prize between everybody, to give like the best director prize between Lynch and Joel Cohen was like a compromise, basically. That they could recognize like a safe film, and then also like the audacity of Mulholland Drive.
Yeah. So after Cannes, Universal Focus picked up the film for U.S. distribution and released it that October. This is 2001. The rollout was slow, just a handful of theaters at first, then a few more. But even at its widest, Mulholland Drive played on fewer than 250 screens, so it wasn't a big release. But wherever it showed, it left an impression. The critical response was almost universally rapturous. Almost. Because one of those holdouts, believe it or not, was that snippy little bitch Rex Reed.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't heard from him in a while.
Can I read this one?
Yeah, read it in your best snippy little bitch voice.
I can't believe I wasted 2 hours and 27 minutes of my life on a load of moronic and incoherent garbage called Mulholland Drive.
It stinks.
I feel like incoherent is the word that's like the clear dividing line. Like critics who hated it, like snippy little bitch Rex Reed, saw it as like a puzzle with like no solution, some kind of prank David Lynch is trying to play on you or something. And the people that loved it understood, I think, that incoherence is kind of the point.
Part of the point, yeah.
Yeah, it's a film about the logic of a dream, and it's meant to be it's meant to be what I keep saying about David Lynch movies sometimes. It's like just it's meant to be felt rather than solved. So Rex Reed is mad that A Dream didn't have a 3-act structure. Basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But, reviews like the one Rex Reed wrote were rare. The overwhelming consensus was that Lynch had delivered something extraordinary, mysterious, emotional, and unlike anything else being made at the time. Now, it wasn't a box office hit. It earned just over $20 million worldwide. But by this point, Lynch had stopped chasing commercial success. He was operating in pure art house mode at this point, creating films that would last longer than their theatrical runs. And even early on, there was a sense that Mulholland Drive was destined for greatness, that this was one for the ages. Now, in the nearly quarter century since its release, there have been countless books and essays and entire websites dedicated to quote unquote figuring out Mulholland Drive. I think it is, in my opinion, it's one of the most thematically rich films ever created. It's like a great complex novel. There's just so much that you can unpack in a myriad of ways to interpret its meanings, its symbols, its metaphors. That's one reason I like revisiting it over and over. Now, Lynch's description of the film is pretty simple. He called it a love story set in the city of dreams, which in a way is all of the description that you need. Now, there are many, countless interpretations for what's going on in Mulholland Drive, but the prevailing theory, the one that most people accept as the main crux of what's going on here, which I should add has never been verified by Lynch. He won't say yay or nay, is that the first 2/3, the pilot essentially, and I think me and Gary, the way we've been commenting on the film, I think we both lean into this interpretation of the film. The first 2/3, that the stuff shot for the pilot, are Diane's idealized hallucinations or a dream moments before her death by suicide. And then that last third is essentially a flashback briefly of her memories of the cold reality that leads to her taking her life. Like in Lost Highway, the end of the movie is really the beginning of the story. So is that how you guys interpreted the film?
No, it should be pretty clear at this point in our coverage of the work of David Lynch that Lynch just isn't for me. And I think it made me think of when I went to see Longlegs, because I didn't really like that. But everybody that loved it was just like, oh, it's vibes. It's so much vibes. And I was like, okay, I know that's not a movie for me. I want more like, let the events play out. I don't need to enter into a contract with the director to interpret the thing. I'm here to be told a story. I don't want to create that story for myself. If I was going to do that, I'd stay home. That just doesn't interest me. So, when it comes to interpreting this film, I think the most interpretation that I've done has been during the recording of the episodes that we're doing right now. Hearing your thoughts is kind of causing me to look back on the film and be like, okay, well, what does that mean? But in the moment, it's just not for me. And I don't think that takes away from anybody else's experience. It's just me clearly defining that this is not what I'm into.
But when you were watching it, did you come up with any sort of like interpretation as to what you thought it was about or going on?
I did, but that will ruin something else later on down the line. So,
okay, will you tell us later on down the line when it's time?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Not in a bonus. Is it not in a bonus segment?
Yeah, it's a bonus.
Well,
segment.
but we gotta give our non-paying listeners
something. Okay. It made me disappointed that, especially after Straight Story, that David Lynch felt like he can't just tell a straightforward narrative.
It's not that he can't; he doesn't want to.
Or that he doesn't want to. It's like, but you make a really good movie. You could appeal to both sides, the folks that do like the mainstream popcorn type stuff and the folks who do really enjoy art house. Like, you could do both.
Sure, but as you're a writer, right? Do you want to write what comes from you or what you think people want? Like he's an artist. He wants to create what he feels the need to create without kowtowing to what the mass audiences want, because that's not true to who he is. So I think any artist or writer or painter or filmmaker or anyone who is doing it for the art should be true to themselves. And that's what he's doing. In the case of the straight story, he was being true to himself in that moment. It just happened to be in something that was a little more straightforward. But I think it's more important to be true to yourself than to try to just make something for the masses. That's how you get these journeyman directors who have no personality in their films. And sometimes those films are fine. There are some great journeyman directors out there who like they just get the job, but there's nothing distinctive about them and no one would dare to call them art.
Okay.
It's tough because it's not, because I get what you're saying, Todd. I think for people who want to be artists, there's something to authenticity.
Authenticity to self as well.
Yeah. So, if you're doing what someone else wants, you're not doing that.
And sometimes there's crossover. Like sometimes somebody can write or direct or paint or whatever, something, or make music that is true to them that also has crossover appeal. Someone like, let's say Stephen King, right? Stephen King, he likes writing scary movies. He's very good at it, or scary stories. He's very good at it. And there are lots of horror writers out there who have not had the crossover success that he has. His stuff has just struck a chord with people, but he's still being true to himself. He's still writing the types of stuff that he wants to write. He's not doing it based on what some publisher told him to write, So there is the possibility of crossover. David Lynch's stuff is a little more difficult, so there's less of that possibility here because that's not his goal. His goal is to make the art that is true to his vision.
When I write something, like if I write a magazine article, I take the assignment and do it in the most entertaining way possible because that's the assignment.
Right,
now,
but that's
if I write something for myself for the stage for stand up, I'll do it at an open mic and then the editing process begins of like, okay, I'm not getting the response I want. So how do I take my vision of what's true to me and marry it to have a successful result?
But is it not just as valid for an artist to say, I'm doing this the way I feel that it needs to exist?
You can, based on what your goals are.
And that's what his goals are to create a work of art that he feels is worthy, whether audiences, are going to, whether it translates to box office or not, that doesn't matter to him. What matters to him is that it comes from a true place. That is an incredibly valid way to make art.
Hey, look, you did a great job of curating these reviews and these lists of people who just think it's the cat's pajamas. I just don't happen to fall into that category, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
But it just doesn't strike with me. And I know that I could write the best article in the world, or I could write the greatest bit and get a decent reaction from an audience, but there's a good chance that there's somebody in that audience, or there's somebody that could read that article. Again, the article being the thing that I wrote for someone who asked for it versus my art on stage. There's a good chance in both scenarios that there's somebody that doesn't like it. But I have to go with what they're looking for as well as what I want to express, knowing that somebody's not probably, you can't please all the people all the time. I know that. And Lynch knows that. But this is just me acknowledging, like, I'm one of the people you didn't please with this one.
Well, no, what I'm more commenting on is you saying that, like, oh, he knows he can make a straightforward movie. Why doesn't he just do that? Because he knows audiences are going to like that. And I'm saying that is not a concern for him. The audiences like it.
True.
That is, like, he doesn't want to do that because that's not what is true to him.
Yeah.
So
there's some people that just care more about that than other people. And I'm not saying that's like good or bad. I just mean there are some people that are just very good at making stuff too. Like, I don't know, what would Steven Spielberg be? Like, that guy is just good at making movies.
And he's good at making movies that reach mass audiences. Without compromising who he is, because that's the kind of storyteller he is. He likes that kind of story, which is obviously very different from David Lynch, but he's still being just as true to like his vision. Christopher Nolan's the same way. Christopher Nolan makes very complex movies, very smart movies that also are very appealing to mass audiences. Like, so you can do both, but I think what's most important is that you're doing what, in the case of someone like David Lynch, who does consider himself an artist. If you consider, and not all directors do. Some directors are fine being like a gun for hire. David Lynch is an artist, and I think as an artist of any kind, music, painting, whatever, the most important thing is to do what you feel is your truth. And for him, it's not making the straight story over and over again. or straightforward movies like that. You know, it's making what comes out of the ideas that he conjures or that he captures, and as he would say. Well, so Gary, what is your interpretation then?
I don't know what was going on in this movie. Obviously, I think, I mean, if I have to like nail down like what was this movie about, or like what's the exact story here, I mean, it's this chick hired a hitman to kill her girlfriend, and she is a failed actress, and then she does the same thing our boy Bill Pullman did in The Lost Highway, and that just makes up a complete illusion for themselves about everything, essentially.
Yeah, I think the difference there is that he's breaking into a different consciousness and living that consciousness sort of like in his mind. Whereas she's sort of like it's almost like a flashback for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It feels like but because of the way that it ends, it almost feels like there's a meeting of the two, which goes back to the dumpster thing too, the monster behind there, that like it's like giving you a little short version of that like there's this merging of reality and the illusion. I think the big thing with this movie is just that like what keeps people coming back to it 25 years later is that, you know, is it a puzzle that you're supposed to solve, or is it the vibe thing again with David Lynch? And I think this movie is like every YouTube, like this is the movie that invented the ending explained YouTube video.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is why those videos exist.
Yep.
And I don't know. And then I feel like David Lynch threw gasoline on that fire, because when the DVD is out, I was reading like these 10 clues to unlocking this thriller thing that he did for France or something.
He did, yeah. He was kind of strong-armed into it by Studio Canal, from what I understand, about releasing some clues to unlocking Mulholland Drive. So I think when he did it, I think he did it with a little smirk, a little bit. Like I think they're more like red herrings that he threw out. You want me to read them? I've got them here.
Yeah, please.
So these are the 10 clues that David Lynch released to they're the clues to unlocking Mulholland Drive. Number 1, pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. Number 2, notice appearances of the red lampshade. Number 3, can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? Number 4, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. That one I actually know, because the location of the accident is the same location that Diane gets out of on Mulholland Drive at the end of the movie. Up to where she goes up the secret path to Adam's house is the same. She stops in the same location, and she's basically wearing the same thing that Rita's wearing at the beginning of the movie. Number 5, who gives a key and why? Number 6, notice the robe, the ashtray, the coffee cup. Number 7, this one's very good, I think. It says, what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio, which we kind of already talked about. Number 8, did talent alone help Camilla? Number 9 says, note the occurrences surrounding the man behind Winkies. We've already talked a little bit about that. And then number 10 is, where is Aunt Ruth? So that one is interesting, because I've seen some theories that say Aunt Ruth is actually dead in the real world version of this. We see her leave in the fantasy version, but in the real world version, she is actually dead. But there's also so many other things you can unlock. And so some of those, like, yeah, they're clues, but they're not really telling you anything, but they are giving you a starting point maybe to unlock some things. I think they're pretty interesting, though.
It also just feels like it's still the ultimate Lynchian trap. Like he's giving you clues, and that aren't
really clues.
Yeah, they're just more mystery.
Yeah,
wouldn't it be weird if I sat bolt upright and just was like, "Oh my god, I get it now!"
Eureka!
I totally get this movie.
It was the red.
He did that. Oh,
it was the red lampshade for me.
Yeah. No, I think it's the great divide on this whole thing. Like, are you a person who treats it like it's some kind of, I don't know, fucking SAT problem where everything's got to have like a one-to-one meaning, or like, do you just strap in?
I think that's a big part of it, Gary. I think that a lot of times when people try to dissect this movie, they want a one-to-one for everything that's in the movie. And I think that you can find the meaning of the movie and what the movie is about without dissecting every little thing. Like, I can't tell you exactly what the blue box means. I can tell you somewhat what it symbolizes at the point in the film where they go inside of the blue box, but there are lots of things in this movie that I can't tell you exactly what they symbolize. And I don't think there is an explanation to every single thing in this. I mean, granted, people have tried. There's an essay that it's on this Mulholland Drive fan site right now. I don't remember where it was originally published, but mulhollanddrive.net has this essay called A Multi-Layered Analysis of Mulholland Drive by Alan Shaw. I saw him called Dr. Alan Shaw somewhere. I don't know what he's a doctor of, but it is 141 pages of analysis on this film, where he goes like scene by scene, and he's got some wild theories. Some of them I think are pretty good. Some of them I think he's stretching a little bit, but I didn't read the whole thing. I read
some of it too. Yeah. It was a lot.
It's fascinating though.
I threw it in my Google LLM, the Google Notes LLM, or
Did you
whatever.
Get him to like summarize it for you?
Well, I was just like, all right, just tell me what it says about this, you know, and that kind of thing. So that's helpful.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Mulholland Drive is, you know, I said when we talked about Lost Highway that I think Lost Highway has like been written about and analyzed more than any other David Lynch movie, and I am wrong when I say that in that episode, because it doesn't hold a candle to how many people are analyzing Mulholland Drive on YouTube and essays, websites, books, like everything. Like, this movie has been analyzed maybe more than any other movie that's ever been made. It's wild. And nobody, myself included, has entirely understood this movie on first viewing. I think this movie absolutely takes multiple viewings. Nor has anyone ever been able to assemble what I think is a complete explanation for what happens in the film from start to finish. Like I said, I don't think every single thing in the film has a one-to-one explanation. But I think this is a movie that kind of journeys into the subconscious. You know, like Lost Highway before it, most of the film exists within the mind of one of its characters, where understanding does not always require rational thought. So each member of the audience has to discover what the movie means to them, but you can't, I think you kind of hinted at this or commented on this earlier, Gary, you have to kind of like be willing to go with the dream logic of the film and not expect it to fall into like real world logic. If you try to get it to fall into real world logic, you're gonna be in a world of hurt. I saw this movie in 2001 when it came out. I've seen it countless times since then. It's my favorite David Lynch movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. Like, if I were ever famous enough to do one of those Letterboxd top 4 interviews, Mulholland Drive would be on the list, you know? And that's because to me, it's a very rewarding experience every time I watch it, because it's so dense, it's so rich in its imagery and its ideas that I get something new out of it every single time. It's a movie that I think grows with you, where each time you watch it, some particular character or some scene jumps out at you and exposes a new theme or a new thread that you might not have seen before. And I think I mean, there aren't very many movies that you can say that in. I've probably seen this movie 30 times. And there aren't very many movies that you can say I've seen 30 times and I'm still finding new stuff to fascinate me about it. Did we talk about all of your interpretation stuff yet, Gary? Well, like a lot of Lynch's films, like this is another variation on the woman in trouble story. Remember his quote about Marilyn Monroe, about her being a woman in trouble. This time, though, she's, you know, Diane's not necessarily in trouble from some external force. There's not an abusive father or a sadistic boyfriend. There's not Bob hiding in the shadows. This time, Diane's true enemy is the dream itself. You know, the dream of Hollywood, the dream of making it, and the inability to cope with reality when that doesn't all work out for her.
It feels like that line, "This is the girl." I want to say it's like the Rosetta Stone of the whole thing or something, but like it's like this cold murder thing that happens, but also it's the ugliest, like, traumatic moment of Diane's life. So talking about your woman in trouble thing, but it's like her broken brain seizes on that phrase and just rewrites it in a dream, basically. And so that it becomes like destiny, like this is the girl, who is the one, the star, the person that everybody wants. And so it turns like this ultimate act of like failure and hate and betrayal or whatever into this fantasy of like being chosen.
Yeah, but it's not her being chosen. Like
Yeah, that's
it's when in the fantasy, this is the girl. They're talking about Melissa George's character. They're not
Yeah.
talking about her at all. So it still becomes like an act of what she feels is the world working against her, right? Because this is, I mean,
yeah.
ultimately, this is like this movie is Lynch's. It's both a love letter and a warning about Hollywood. Like in the past, as we've talked about, he has shown us the evil, rotting underbelly of small town America, and here he turns that same lens onto Hollywood to show us the kind of decay beneath the tinsel of Tinseltown. Because in Hollywood, everyone has two faces. Everyone lives in the face of shattered dreams. Everyone goes to Hollywood to make it. Very few of them do. And in the Hollywood of Diane's dream, this goes back to what we were saying about this is the girl. Her psyche sort of portrays it like it's a rigged game, one that's run by this cabal of mobsters and cowboys and faceless gatekeepers. You do have to wonder if Lynch's own experiences with studios like ABC fueled that point of view. It certainly feels like it. But for Diane, it's sort of her excuse, or it's her mind's excuse for why she never made it. It wasn't because she wasn't good enough. It's because the cards were always stacked against her, because there was this like shady syndicate of people who had already pre-chosen this other girl. Even when she catches the director's eye when she walks onto the set of the movie and sees Justin Theroux from across the room, they make a connection, but he can't pick her because he has to pick this other girl that's already been chosen by this group of shadowy figures. And so she's sort of, she's a failed actress in real life, but in her mind she's blaming, oh, it's not because of me, it's because these guys making the decisions in Hollywood just pick somebody else. It has nothing to do with me. It's somebody else's fault. And that's sort of like how her brain interprets that whole thing. And I know it's a fascinating look at psychology and so many, dream logic and so many other things. And it's one of those movies that we could talk about for forever and we could probably come up with other interpretations as we talk about it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, you can make it into something else. No, I think that's the ultimate thing that I actually meant to mention earlier is like for David Lynch, going back to the very beginning of this whole episode or this podcast about this movie, is that we were talking about how he was obsessed, or what brought him back to TV to initially try to create a pilot, is he liked the idea of an unending mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And we also talked about how it's hard to argue with like some of his decision making, like when he picks a random person just based on their photo or
vibrations.
The vibrations. And it's like, I don't know, man, lots of people are still talking about this movie. And so the mystery of this movie, say what you will, whether or not you think there's any interpretation at all, or that you have the interpretation or whatever, he still ended up making like the endless mystery out of this movie.
Yeah.
And it worked because people still are talking about this movie and it's still on everybody's mind. So like, as far as that goes, yeah,
a quarter of a century later, people are still analyzing it and still talking about it like we are right now. Not every movie has that kind of lasting legacy. You might talk about a movie 25 years later because you like it. Like I love this movie. I love Batman Returns, but you're not analyzing Batman Returns, right? You're talking about it because you like it. Like this, we're talking about it like we still are finding new things about it to talk about, which is pretty special in any movie. So at the time when it was released, Mulholland Drive received 4 Golden Globe nominations and 1 singular Academy Award nomination for Best Director, which I think is a shame. I think it's a travesty that Naomi Watts was not nominated for this, among other things. I think it should have got Best Picture and everything. But the fact that it didn't get Naomi Watts a nomination is it's one of those Academy decisions that just feels like they just didn't know what they were doing that year, right? He didn't win for Best Director. I don't remember who did. I don't care. But because in the years since, this movie has continued to grow in stature. It's become the kind of film that critics build canons around. The influential French film journal Cahiers du Cinéma named it the best film of the 2000s. The Los Angeles Film Critics Association agreed. In a 2016 BBC poll of 177 critics across 36 countries, Mulholland Drive ranked as the single greatest film of the 21st century. That same year, IndieWire's own critics survey also placed it at number 1, calling it, quote, the defining film of modern American cinema.
It's amazing that a movie that was literally thrown in the trash by a major network is now being called the greatest film of the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
Every critic who puts this at number 1, I feel like is just giving like a middle finger to. It feels like I was going to say ABC.
To Mickey Mouse?
Yeah. I was going to say Disney, then I was going to say ABC, and then I'm like, maybe just like one particular ABC executive somewhere who was just like, fuck this movie or fuck this pilot. But it's like the most high art I told you so in movie history.
Right. Yeah, for real.
I don't know.
Yeah. So in the Sight and Sound Critics poll, which is the British Film Institute's once a decade ranking, Mulholland Drive, this is in the most recent ranking, placed at number 8 overall. It was the highest ranking film of the 21st century. And most recently, this was like last year, the New York Times most recent version of their best films of the 21st century so far list, which they revise every couple of years, it landed at number 2, just behind Parasite. In 2021, as you mentioned, Gary, The Ringer ranked Naomi Watts' performance as the number 1 film performance of the century so far. What Watts does here isn't a performance, is what they wrote. They say it's an exorcism. No one has captured the terror and ecstasy of transformation quite like this.
I almost feel like we've talked about Naomi Watts a little bit more than like sometimes we get into the story of an actor. Maybe not, but I feel like that exorcism quote's pretty perfect. Like it's the key to why the whole thing works. Like if it was just about it and it's all a dream kind of thing, like that sort of twist, that would almost be a gimmick.
Yeah.
But because of how raw she is in this movie, especially in that last 30 minutes or so, that it gives it like emotional weight. That's where it really becomes like it's not just like a puzzle that you're dealing with. Like it's you're piecing together this person's broken brain.
Yeah, you feel her suffering.
Yeah,
and not unlike how we felt with Laura Palmer in Fire Walk with Me. Granted, we had spent a lot more time with Laura Palmer, but it's the same thing, that like that empathetic look at this broken person, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a lot about Mulholland Drive that I love. I think it's been clear throughout the course of this episode that I'm a huge fan of this movie. I mean, I already said it's my favorite David Lynch movie. He's probably my favorite director. So it's like, this is pretty high up in the canon for me. But I think what I love most about it is that it's one of those movies that truly challenges its audience. Like every viewer sees something different in it. You can watch it once, you can watch it a dozen times or 100 times, and you'll still walk away with new revelations each and every time. And I think it's important to say that like Lynch has never set out to confuse people. I think that's something that, you know, if you're a member of Cinema Shock Plus, you heard our Somebody Needs a Nap segment. And a lot of these people are just like, they just thought Lynch is just like playing a prank on them. Like he's trying to confuse them. That's never been Lynch's intention. He likes to present a mystery. That's what he wants to present, a mystery. And because to him, mystery is a gift. He doesn't explain his films because he wants you to feel your way through them the same way that he feels his way through his creative process. That's his mystery. He finds meaning inside of that in the act of doing, in the act of creating the art. And he wants you to feel the same way, to find that meaning in the act of watching the film, not necessarily in dissecting it. And in that sense, his movies don't always ask for passive viewers. Like they're not something you can just throw on and have playing while you're doing other stuff. They ask for collaborators. They demand that we meet them halfway. And we've talked a lot about what Mulholland Drive quote unquote means, about its symbols and interpretations, because that's fun. It's fun to talk about that. And we could have we could have talked all day about what does the blue box mean? What does the key mean? What about the scene where the guy shoots the girl in the butt? Like, what does this all mean? And try to dissect that all day, because it's fun to do that stuff. It's like playing Clue, right? But really, the movie is less about decoding the story and more about just surrendering to it. The real understanding for a movie like Mulholland Drive, and this could be said for a lot of Lynch's films, is not in your head, it's in your gut. And I think to me, that's why his films, and this one especially, feel so alive, no matter how many times you return to them. Mulholland Drive never gives up its secrets. It just keeps offering new feelings, new questions, new ways to dream every time that you watch it. So in a world where most movies insist on telling you exactly what you want to think, Mulholland Drive dares you to lose yourself in the mystery. Now, after Mulholland Drive, Lynch himself dove deeper into that mystery, further into the unknown than he'd ever gone before. He left behind film stock, left behind movie studios, and he started experimenting with digital cameras, online storytelling, and short-form projects that blurred the line between cinema and dream. It's the beginning of a bold, unpredictable, and fearless new chapter in his career, and we're going to follow him there in our next episode when we cover David Lynch's final theatrical film, Inland Empire. I'm excited about it. This is one that I have seen less than pretty much all of these except for the straight story. So it's an intimidating one. It is long. It is difficult. It is not. It is, I hate to say it, Todd, it is his least straightforward film that we have covered so far.
Oh boy.
And Todd,
Tell him.
brace yourself.
Tell him, Gary.
It's 3 hours long.
Motherfucker. God damn it.
I text Justin as soon as I saw that while I was looking at stuff. I was like, this is going to break Todd. You're going to break Todd with 3 hours.
Yeah. I guess that's it, guys, for this episode. Again, if you want more of our deep dives into Lynchian weirdness, you can support us by joining Cinema Shock Plus. You get early ad-free episodes, extended cuts of these episodes, access to our Fire Shock with Me series. That's our Twin Peaks watch-along series, where you can hear us discuss Twin Peaks one damn fine cup of coffee at a time. You get access to exclusive parts of our Discord channel. You get merchandise discounts. You get video if you're on the highest tier. So there's all kinds of perks.
You want to see this mug talk about, I don't know,
David Lynch?
Naomi Watts as a cereal box.
Did I say join us at cinemashock.net/plus? I don't know if I did.
You have now.
I guess so. Join us at cinemashock.net/plus to join Cinema Shock Plus. We really appreciate everyone who has joined already. It really does mean a lot to us, so thank you. That's it. We're almost done with this David Lynch series, and we're on to something else. We got one more episode, guys. And that's it.
Todd is still with the podcast so far.
So far.
He hasn't quit yet. This might break him.
I'm excited. All right. Where can you fellas be found on the internet?
I am at This Is Gary Horn, all spelled out.
I am at Mr. Todd A. Davis on most of the things.
All right, you can find me at Justin_Bishop on most social media, but most importantly, follow the show, Cinema_Shock, cinemashock.net for all the links to everything. All of our other social media is linked on there, links to our merch store, all that kind of stuff. And most importantly, if you like the show, just tell somebody about it. Tell a friend about it. If you have a friend who likes David Lynch, or if you have a friend who hates David Lynch, tell them, you're going to love this fucking Todd guy. You should go listen to this. Either way, share it with somebody if there's something in here that they're going to like. And, we always say rate and review. That's always good too. That's the best way to get it out there to people. But I feel like word of mouth is just as good. Just send that link to somebody if you enjoyed an episode. And we really, really appreciate that. And until next time, guys,
may the wings of liberty never lose a feather.
And be excellent to each other.
When you see that guy in the picture that was shown to you earlier today, you will say, this is the key. The rest of the cast can stay. That's up to you. But Johnny is not up to you.
It's a pretty good cowboy.
Oh, thanks. I just tried to do it as dry as I possibly could.
As though you were reading it off Justin Theroux's chest.